Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt, once again from Divination Counseling Service. Today I want to present another diurnal chart on gambling. And today I really want to focus on the asteroids because they just told such a complete story that I thought it was really worthwhile sharing with you. So this will be a little short video on gambling, but hopefully it's informative to anyone out there who is interested in studying more of the diurnal charts, and in particular those people who do really like gambling. So this is for all you gamblers out there. So before I begin the actual chart, I just want to say thank you for watching the video. I want to give a special thank you to all of my subscribers who are helping me build this little channel. Thank you so much, guys. I would appreciate if you'd like, share, comment, because I'd love to hear from you. But the liking and sharing really helps the algorithms. So I appreciate all that you do, guys. And thank you so much. Like I said, you're a small group, but I appreciate you. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and look at this chart. So before I begin, I want to state a few things. First of all, this is an individual who is a regular scratch-off ticket buyer. As a matter of fact, he would never not gamble on a Friday the 13th. So I do want to talk a little bit about that, okay, that Friday the 13th. I'm going to talk about the asteroids because it really builds the story for the whole thing. And it really does talk about this man's connection to Friday the 13th, by the way, in the asteroids. But when we first go in and look at it, I want to do the original, just go in looking at just the chart. It does talk about the cusps of the houses, and there's a lot there that already starts and begins the story. But it was during the time that I was doing the asteroids that it just went off the charts as aha moments. So now, if you will, let's jump in and let's look at what this chart has to offer us in terms of educating us on what is it that we want to look for. Now, I do want to also point out this before we even begin, and I'll point out why. This person did win a couple $100s. It didn't happen all in one ticket, and we'll look at that and I'll show you that. This happened over a period of time. And that's actually in the chart. But what I really want to talk about with this is the fact that these were not big wins, but it was an accumulative effect. And the other thing that I want to talk about is the asteroids that we might want to start studying if you're really interested in doing this kind of work, because there are asteroids such as Midas, Peo, Banks, all of them relate to money. And to understand all of your money asteroids would really be helpful in a scenario where you're following either someone who gambles, which is what I do, or if you happen to be a gambler yourself. You would really want to know these things. So let's go in and look at this chart and jump right into what it is that we want to really center on when we're looking at these charts. Well, I'm back, and hopefully we don't get the ding, ding, ding noise. They're working on a building across the street, and it's just really getting annoying to me. So I'm pretty sure you won't hear it, but it is annoying to me. So basically, here we are. Here's our chart, and the first thing I want to point out is look at the ascendant at 4 degrees of Gemini, and look right at Mercury. Right here we are at 4 degrees of Gemini. So Mercury sits immediately, or shall we say absolutely, on that ascendant. Now, with that said, the chart itself is also ruled by the sign of Gemini. So it's really interesting that the strength of this Gemini planet. Now, remember that in horary, Gemini is pretty benign, doesn't really bring anything to the picture, but it does in this case because it actually rules it. Now let's talk about a few other things. First of all, this was a neighborhood store that he could walk to. It was really literally down the block. So it is a Mercury. Okay? So we can start right off with the fact that there was a Mercury. He walked to get there. It was in the neighborhood. These are all Mercury terms. Neighborhood, walking. So this is all related to Mercury. So it's pretty cool. I also do want to point out, I don't know that it had anything to do with anything, but the individual that I'm going to be talking about is a Taurus, and there was a Sun node that day. So, again, some good stuff. But as you go through this chart, you are going to see things like Persephone hanging here on the second house cusp. Okay, so he's by himself. All right, but second house is, value. Yeah, and I don't do anything with this. I just happen to live with this person, but I don't do any of the gambling. I like this 1936. It's literally, you're going to see that they're right, and this 1911. See these two? You've got this Demeter, and you've got this, and this is the ninth house cusp, this health asteroid. And interestingly enough, they're also in the axis. So that's all I really want to tell you about them. But do note that it was a food store. Okay. And do note also that it's a retrograde asteroid for health. Okay. I think he felt really good that day. He actually has some hip issues with some arthritis, and he was feeling good that day. He walked down. But it's not a long walk. Now, also note that as you go through, you do have, and this again is slightly out, but I would say that earlier that day, this is Anubis, and he probably was filling bird feeders, suet blocks for the pileated woodpeckers. We really have, he has a space where it's a lot of wildlife. And we love wildlife. So that was no surprise to see that there. Then, as I move on and we kind of go through everything here, endings is really interesting. And it does show up in the axes because it is on the ascendant axis, because it's the descendant. And it's really interesting that by the time he shares with others what's happening, and you can see that in a few places, he's done. Okay, and I'll explain all of that to you, but endings does relate here. Other factors to look at, like I said, I already brought that up. There really wasn't, as far as I remember, there really wasn't anything else that jumped out. Okay, so I'm pretty sure here we have, we did go through the Gemini, we did go through the health asteroid, we did go through the endings at the descendant, we did talk about how he did it by himself, and it is second house, because it's actually something that he does, that he values, that the rest of us not so much. And Adamite tells you at the IC that Adamite, and that's really important because that's not showing up here. That's something I actually found. And Adamite is what's telling you that these will not be big wins, that they will be small wins. And it ends up that he did come up ahead after the whole day or the whole evening, because it only lasted a few hours, that he did end up maybe about $200 ahead from this. So that was really good. And then one of the other things that I will be pointing out is, look at this 4 degrees, and then you have the 10, almost 11 fixed. Well, in a 4-degree mutable axis, which is what this is, 12 degrees of fixed is one of the points. So at 11 degrees, 1054, that's 11 degrees. What you're really seeing here is the midheaven still in the axis. We're still in the springtime, right? So the midheaven is only 1 degree out of the axis, which means they are combining their stuff. So these asteroids are going to show up in both axis points. And I think that is really telling as well. So, you do have like little things like the sun node. Oh, I'm not so sure how good that is. They always do say that when the node is on the sun, it doesn't really mean as much as if that sun node was making a connection to the midheaven. It's not. It's not making a connection because it's out of sign to the ascendant. But it is worth noting, okay, only because I think that sometimes when timing is on your side, which is, here we go again, it could have been a good timing day for a lot of things, okay? So with that said, I'm going to actually jump now to the dial. And when I get into the dial, what I really want to do is talk about not only what falls in the axis. Now I didn't go back, like for example, banks. We're just going to start there. Does fall on the ascendant. Banks is for big money. All right. Now you say to yourself, but it wasn't big money. It was only a couple $100. Yeah, because he had Adam Eat at the IC. Okay. So if you got one at the ascendant and one at the IC, that's not going to work so well. And the fact that the IC is in the axis of the ascendant means that Banks is in the same axis as Adamite, the asteroid. So that's really worth talking about. Okay? So we're moving now to the dial. And I have it set right at the ascendant point. You can see right across the dial, here's Demeter, here, and they're within that degree, and here is that health asteroid. So it's the health asteroid is retrograde, but I thought it was just interesting because he actually walks down there. That's really healthy. We do live in a city. We do walk a lot. And so he walked down there and he got his ticket at this little corner grocery store, and it tells you it's a grocery store. And by the way, he did it till he stopped winning, till the end. Okay, so it was really, he did come out ahead, but he did it till he stopped winning. So, and he did it more than once, and that's going to be in here, okay? So the chart is so accurate in the story. So let's talk about the story. Okay, so Hestia is there, and so is Not, okay? And it's with Banks. And that's another thing that tells you it won't be a real big win. But Not is also running with Hestia. Well, ironically, this all takes place after he's done working. And fits that. Hestia is the work and Not. The other thing that Hestia fits is that he did all this on his own. So you've got Persephone in the ascendant axis, but then when you open it up to the midheaven, you have both Persephone and Proserpina. So this was all done. And this is, again, the second house was done by himself. But then he's the one that believes that May 13th, Friday the 13th, is always a lucky day for him. So that's really something for him. I don't think anything in gambling is pretty lucky for me, but he really does have good luck on the Friday 13th. So that's what he was doing. So Letitia tells us too that he wins, but he decides to go back and get more tickets from his winnings, where he wins again. So he disrupts it, he goes back, he wins more, okay? We've got Payo, we've got Banks. We've also got Credo, because remember, this is a person who says that he always wins on Friday the 13th. So it was all about his credibility, and he won. So that worked. But I like this one. He has, he has this Hidalgo conjunct Melpomene, which means he will not speak out about this while it's going on because he feels that it will change his luck for the worst. I thought that was hilarious because that's true. That's exactly what happened. Okay? It was exactly what happened. Okay? Ditto tells us he did it more than once. He did. He repeated it. Ditto. Repeatable. Okay? He did it. And he did it till it ended. Now, it was a retrograde, so he ended up ahead. But once he got tickets that didn't give him anything anymore, he stopped. And that's when he comes and he tells us. Okay, so that was really cool. Varda is reversed. And remember that Varda's showing up with Credo. So Varda is that truth that'll set you free. Well, he's still going on this gambling on Friday the 13th thing. Okay. I also loved this. He had Valentine conjunct Bacchus. Now, Bacchus is in both of these axes. And I do believe this is a person who really is addicted to the excitement of the scratch-off tickets, but really any small gambler games of chance, okay? And it showed up that he was excited about the Bacchus, okay? He really was. I also feel that, he felt like he was being held for ransom. No, I don't think so. I do believe that that's true. I think that he feels like he really has to gamble on Fridays the 13th. He has to. It's unbelievable. But what I really wanted to point out here was how much of a factor Banks played, Payo, Credo, okay, and how they are all part of both of these axes. And even though Not showed up there as well as Adam Meat, which means it lessened it, and he didn't win thousands, he only won hundreds. But I still think that even with those diminished, nothing stopped it. And he did do it till it ended. Now, fortunately, endings, Atropos, was retrograde. I don't know what would have happened if Atropos was direct. I'm not quite sure about that. But I do know that this was a winning day, and it really did reinforce how this man feels about his gambling on Friday the 13th. So let me come on back. So I'm back, different camera, and I don't want this to be a very long video. But what I do hope that I'm impressing upon you is that if you are interested in diurnals, and by the way, let me just pull something up here. One of the ways in which I check these charts is by the diurnals, because boy, you know, especially with the asteroids, so much of a story. You just heard me tell you a whole story about how this person didn't tell us till it was over, how he did this all on his own, how he won several $100s, and that he did it right in his own neighborhood. All of that was a part of a story. And that's what we do when we're doing astrology. But one of the things that I do is I also will rectify charts. So very quickly, let me go back just for a second and show you why I know this was an accurate chart. Now I have the chart back up again. I'm not going to stay on this very long, but I do want to show this. The very next day, okay? So here we are the very next day. What is now showing up is Sappho. Well, Saturday was kind of a really cool day for us. We got together with a bunch of our friends and we bonded. Well, it was a day when a friend of mine who's a masseuse was doing massages, I was doing card readings, and we were doing it only for our friends. In other words, and we were collecting money. It wasn't like it was freebies or anything, but it was discounted and mini readings and mini massages, but it was all about bonding. And it was a bonding of our work, and it was bonding of our friends. And our friends, you know, we all bond. I mean, we're all different, but yet there's a real thread of being genuine in terms of who we are. And it's real important. And it shows right in his chart that we are going to be doing that the next day. It was a very successful, very fun time. And I do want to point that out. We could probably go through this whole chart and look at how this all worked out in terms of the next day. In other words, you could just go in and where were all these things on the next day. But I also like this. The dependency on other people would have been coming into effect the next day. Yeah. It really was a dependent. We didn't know who was even going to show up, which was beautiful. And it still ended up being very successful. So it was a fun day just to bond with people doing what we do. And his chart showed that. And to me, that makes this chart very accurate. And again, one of the best ways for us as astrologers to rectify charts is doing things like diurnals, is doing things like asteroids, because we can really nail it. We can so nail it with those factions. So I'm coming back. So I'm back, other camera. So with that said, guys, I really hope that this is educational, because you know me, I'm all about the education. I want to produce astrologers. I want the common man to feel comfortable with astrology. And I want to present this work in such a way that whether you decide to be a professional astrologer, a dabbler of astrology, or just somebody who follows along, that you are gaining something from these videos, from these experiences, particularly these diurnals. So once again, thank you for watching the video, and pass the word on. If you know anybody who's interested in gambling, they might want to be looking at the astrology. It does kind of help guarantee things a little bit. So with that said, I'm going to leave you as I always do, which is that until we meet again, I wish you all only happy reading.